Joining me now is Pennsylvania Congressman Scott Perry. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. I know you've got President Trump coming back to your state again this weekend to man the fryer at a McDonald's in Philadelphia. How big is this state for the race?
They don't call it the Keystone State for nothing, Maria. Thanks for having us on. Look, it was the linchpin in 1776, and it remains the linchpin in 2024. All eyes are on Pennsylvania. This is where the battleground is. This is where the battle is being fought most fiercely. Both campaigns, multiple trips on a regular, almost weekly basis now. That's only going to heat up in the last 2 weeks. Of course, Elon crisscrossing the states, dark MAGA. You know, that whole thing kind of coming into favor. And this is where it's all going to happen. If Pennsylvania goes for Trump, the rest of the story is going to be irrelevant, because President Trump will be the 47th president of the United States.
Give us your opinion on what the most important issues are to voters in your state and whether they will vote for Trump. What do you think?
Well, the most important issues are certainly, and you get this, Maria, the economy. People can't afford their lives anymore. I mean, just in the span of 4 years, their regular daily lives have been turned on their head. You know, they're buying their groceries with their credit card bills. They can't afford their electricity rates, daycare. Heaven forbid you've got to buy a new car or a new home. So economy's number one. Safety and security is number two. Not only internationally, of course, we all, all people look around the world and see what's happening, but literally on their streets. And while, NBC and the other networks are reporting that crime is down, the FBI quietly admitted that total crime is up 50%, Maria. It's staggering. And people see it, they see it in their streets, and they're worried about it.
Yeah, and I saw that. And just the way they did with jobs, telling us there's so many jobs created, jobs. And then they come out and they quietly reassess it and say, no, 818,000 jobs weren't there. Same with the crime statistics. They said crime is down, and yet no. Crime is actually up significantly. Well, the open border is part of it, right? I mean, this is certainly a key issue in your state. The majority of county sheriffs in Pennsylvania just out with a letter wholeheartedly endorsing President Trump as the best candidate to support law enforcement and secure the border. The former president has taken a hard line on illegal immigration. He's promising mass deportation of criminal illegal aliens if elected. Meanwhile, Harris continues to blame Republicans for a failed border bill. That is always where she goes. The Senate border bill would have fixed everything, and Trump killed it, even though the border bill was killed this year, 2024, and they've been in office while illegals come through the border since 2021. Congressman, your reaction?
Yeah, well, of course she's going to say that, and she describes it as a border bill. But the reason it didn't pass through the Senate is because it wasn't a border bill. It was actually an amnesty bill that allowed for 5,000 people to cross illegally every single day. We go to the legislature, to the House and the Senate, to provide solutions, not codify the problems and enshrine them in the law. And so, people get it. They know that it wasn't a border bill, and she can keep going back to it. So people are seeing it, and they're sick of it. The sheriffs are seeing it. They're dealing with the increased crime rates. They're dealing with the increased incarceration rates. And they know that what Harris is saying is just not true. They're for Trump because they also know that the Harris campaign is now in complete free fall, and everybody gets it.
Well, look, we also are looking at wars across the world. I want to get your take on Israel. We're awaiting fallout from Israeli Defense Forces killing Yahya Sinwar, Hamas's leader, the architect of the terrorist group's October 7th attack on Israel. Iran says Sinwar's death will only strengthen the, quote, spirit of resistance. Hezbollah is also out with a warning of a new phase of the war with Israel. You're on the Foreign Affairs and Intelligence Committees, Congressman. What's your take on all of this? What do you think happens next?
Well, it makes perfect sense that Iran would say that, because they know this administration is on both sides of this war. So while Sinwar is gone and it's another terrorist off the streets, they know that we're going to continue to fund, or allow them to continue to fund, by selling oil. No sanctions, no restrictions. They know there's an election coming, and President Biden wants to keep the prices suppressed so that Kamala Harris can say that everything's fine. Meanwhile, all that money is being diverted to Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, the Houthis, Iran. Iran knows that. They know it's just the next terrorist up, right? Sinwar's gone, but there's someone else in the wings. Meanwhile, nothing's been done with the leadership that sits quietly and comfortably in Qatar and other places. Iran knows this, so they know what the game is. It's just that the Biden administration is no one presses them other than maybe you, Maria. None of the mainstream media presses them on why we're on both sides of the war. As you remember, when we voted to give some more money and munitions to Israel, we also had to fund Hamas, and then immediately President Biden restricted the munitions and is now restricting intelligence.
They just sent a letter this past week saying, look, to Benjamin Netanyahu, Biden's national security team, Anthony Blinken and Lloyd Austin, sending a letter saying, look, if you don't increase humanitarian aid, we will halt weapons to Israel. They're threatening Israel again in the middle of this fight for survival.
Yeah, they threaten Israel, but they can't send a letter to Iran, to the Ayatollahs, saying, hey, why don't you stop selling oil illegally and paying for all this terrorism? And, oh, by the way, why don't you quit attacking your neighbor? They never send that letter. And, of course, the mainstream media never ask the question, why do you only threaten Israel? How come you don't threaten the terrorists in Iran and their proxies?
Exactly. All right, we will leave it there. Congressman, it's great to see you. Thanks very much.
Great to see you, Maria. God bless you.
Pennsylvania Congressman Scott Perry, and to you, God bless you, sir.